Hi, my name is Johanna Milius, and you're listening to Just Backlund.
I'm a fool for your love.
Hey guys, welcome back. We are finally back. We were on a roll with episodes for 1.5 years and then we took a break for about a month. But we are back and I'm so excited to be back. Evidently, Praatibh's not here right now because he's sick, so he's taking a break. But for the love of God, I couldn't reschedule this episode because of how special it is. Not only is it our first episode of this year, let's get a little personal, all right? It's been a dream of mine, or at least I've envisioned of me becoming a dad and having a family of sorts, one way or the other. And when I went through this family story and when I started reading about them, not only was I inspired, but I started looking up to them, and so I started following everything that they did. Now, calling them God sent is an understatement because of what they provided to a child. They not only provided a child with a shelter, but gave them a dad, gave her a dad, gave her a mom, and gave her a sister to grow up with. So this is what I usually do before I start a podcast. I usually sit in my room alone and think about how I have to introduce the guest. And you have seen me struggle through the pointers that I write down. But I didn't do that this time. I just thought I'd just sit in front of the camera and talk with whatever I feel from my heart, and that's exactly what I'm doing. These guys are absolute angels. So, Johanna, thank you so much for joining in. From the bottom of my heart, it's such a pleasure to talk to you. And yeah, before we get into everything, you have done a wonderful thing. So yeah,
Thank
thank you so much for
you.
joining in.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
It's an honor for us, and you've been sweet throughout. By the way, I'll continue talking about her, but before we get into everything that you've done, adopting a child and going through all the process and different aspects of that, I was going through your Instagram account, and you love the outdoors, you love your adventure activities, and I wanted to ask you how you fell in love with the outdoors, because I'm a outdoorsy guy. I love the sun. I love going around the beach and stuff. So how did you fall in love with the outdoors and yeah, your relationship with adventure sports?
Yeah, thanks for noticing that. I do love the outdoors. We grew up in Texas, and
Hmm.
so most of the time you're outdoors anyway if it's not too hot. But I've always been drawn to something that's bigger than I am. So outdoors is the first way to connect to that,
Hmm.
and it's just my peaceful place to be out in something that's greater than I am. So the ocean, the mountains, it's kind of where I
Yes.
find my happiness and my
Hmm.
peace.
Hmm.
I worked in an emergency room for 8 years, and I needed to find something that could give me a good coping mechanism. So being outdoors was a big part of that.
Do you think there's some sort of freedom that you feel when you're in the
Oh,
outdoors?
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like letting go of yourself because you're so small compared to everything else around you. There's a lot of
Yes.
freedom in that. Yeah.
That's exactly, I relate to
Yeah.
that so much. Now, getting into the process itself, I was going through another video of yours where you said that adopting a child is something you and your husband always wanted to do.
Yes.
Though it's a simple question. Why though? Why is
Yeah.
that something you wanted to do?
So Shane and I have been together since we've been in high school. So we're coming up on our 10-year anniversary
That's
of
so sweet.
marriage.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's so
We knew
sweet.
we were meant to be together. So we both sides of our families have adopted. So my
Hmm.
family is adopted domestically and his family is adopted internationally.
Hmm.
So it's kind of a culture that we grew up with, being that love has no bloodline, love has no bounds. And then Shane's family adopted his brother from Uganda when we were in high school and we were dating, and
Oh
we were
wow.
actively a part of that process.
Right.
And seeing where he came from, and then what his family was able to just give him, and the opportunities and the love and everything that Samuel needed was something that Shane and I were able to be a part of. And we were like, this is something that we absolutely are making a commitment to do together once we, are married and ready for it. So yeah.
That's such a beautiful story. So I was assuming my next question was about what did people around think of this. So I'm assuming a lot of the people around you were supportive naturally.
Yeah, well, we had both sides of the opinion, as you always do when you make
Yeah, of
a
course.
big decision.
Hmm.
But our family has been huge, and they're awesome, and they are very supportive of us. A lot of people ask the question, why international, why not domestic? And it doesn't quite matter. Every child matters. We chose
Hmm.
to adopt internationally. That doesn't mean the domestic or the children
Right.
in Texas aren't any less than.
Mhm.
So it's just what our family was drawn to.
When I was going through, I'm going to be honest here, I took a lot of time going through a lot of your stories and you updating. I took a lot of time, not because it was a lot to go through, but I started feeling things I didn't really feel before, and it was just so emotional. So I had to take my time with it. Usually I'll take an hour or two of making questions up, but this took a long time because it was
Yeah.
emotional.
Well, it was a long process.
Yes, it definitely was. And that's my next question too. The process was long. Like you said, I think you registered in 2018 March, and then you
Mhm.
matched with Nana 2019 November, if I'm not wrong.
Mhm. You got it.
But it took a really long time for you to even see her, didn't it?
Yes. That was
So,
the hardest part, one of the hardest parts. Yeah.
so what was that process like? What was the first few process like of getting matched and getting approved? But
Mhm.
also, yeah, after that, how much was it weighing on you for not being able to meet her? I'm guessing you missed two of her birthdays too, if I'm not wrong.
I know we missed one since we were matched with her,
Hmm.
but because she was 18 months when we got matched with her. So,
Right,
so getting started with the process, we found an agency in the U.S. They're based out of Virginia, and you just start. The process is getting like your basic home studies. The whole family goes through background checks, things
right.
like that. That took a while, some paperwork, obviously, and then you get loaded on. It's like a database where
Mm-hmm.
it's have like the orphans that are looking to be matched with with parents, and then the parents are looking to be matched with children.
Right.
And Nana wasn't a direct match to us. She wasn't a direct match to anybody, actually. But our director, our person who's helping us with our agency, sent us the file and was like, "Hey, like, just take a look at the file. I know she's not a direct match. There's some medical needs that you guys may not be ready for, but just take a look at the file and tell me what you think." And as soon as we opened the file, we were like, "That's our kid," you know. And her eyes, man. The first photo we saw was her big, beautiful brown eyes, and she had just like the cutest little smirk on her face, and it was really intimidating looking at her medical file
Mm-hmm.
because there's a lot of unknowns. And she is a fighter. I mean, she fought her whole way through the NICU like all by herself.
Definitely did.
So that was a little intimidating. Me
Mm-hmm.
being a nurse, I know like the actuality of what it could look like, what she could maybe be lacking growing up. But we took a lot of time together, Shane and I did, and just kind of discussed pros and cons. Would we be able to give her everything she needs? Are we ready for that? You
Mm-hmm.
know, and then finally we were just like, you know what, like we're going to trust that this is our child and she was meant to be put in our lap for a reason. And it was 100% the truth. And she just walked in, well, she scooted into our lives perfectly. So,
And that's so great. And you're right, it's meant to be. Looking through every photos and everything that you put up on Instagram is just
mhm,
so beautiful. And I
yeah,
can't emphasize more on that. But do you remember the day you first met her and you met her the first day but couldn't hold her because
couldn't touch her.
yeah.
Yeah,
But then
that
you
was
met
horrible.
how do you feel as a mother? Your child's right in front of you, but you can't hold her. And
I knew there was going to be like restrictions with COVID, and we were like obviously like just happy that we were able to travel when we were because it was
Mhm.
right in the heat of COVID over in India as well. So we were grateful for the opportunity, and we were going to try to like oblige by the laws as much as we
Right.
could, but it was incredibly hard. We had just traveled, we had just landed in her state like an hour before, and then we get a call and we're like, "Hey, they want you to see Nana today, and then do the handing over ceremony tomorrow." And we're like, "Okay, yeah, sure, let's do it."
Right.
And just getting there and the anxiety of, "Oh my gosh, she may hate us. She doesn't know at all who we are. You know, like she has no idea. These
Right.
random people are coming into my home that I know and are trying to touch me or love on me." And she has, I mean, she's 2 at the time. She has no idea. So it was really hard, but just to see her and to be sharing a room with her finally, um, I mean, it was a beautiful moment. And she loved Kyla, our oldest daughter. She absolutely loved Kyla, which was good for us because then
Right.
she could
Yeah.
trust us. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Do you ever look back? Do you ever sit down and look back at those days?
Yes. I actually made a journal. I was
Mm-hmm.
journaling the whole time while we were waiting, and And the whole time during COVID, while everything was delayed and just the emotions I was processing, there were so many nights where it was me going to bed and knowing she was probably just waking up over there and she
Right.
still has no idea that I'm her
Right.
mom
Hmm.
and she's alone in a crib. And what if she's sick? What if she has COVID? What if some her caretaker has COVID and she's not being taken care of? What if her diaper's wet? I mean, there's so many like mom emotions that you go
Hmm.
through. And I just had to breathe through it and find peace and know that she's going to be taken care of. And when it's my turn, it's going to be my turn, you know? But I look back at that journal often when she's having a rough, grumpy day. I'm like, oh
Right.
my gosh, this child's crazy, but it's better than not having
Right.
her.
Yeah,
So,
but when you look back, you can be so proud of yourself. Not only her, of course, she's a fighter, but the fact that you went through so much and went through the process is something you can really be proud of. But
yeah.
I had this question in mind for a long time when I actually got to know about your account and what you guys were doing. Is she was 2 when you met, and like you said, she's someone from another part of the world, and it could have been really bad if she didn't connect. So
Absolutely.
was that something you were prepared for? How do you prepare for something like that? Waiting for 2 years almost to meet her, and then
Yeah.
what if she didn't connect?
Yeah, we go through a lot of training
Mm-hmm.
with our adoption agency. We went through that absolute worst case scenarios. I mean, the child's going through a lot of trauma.
Right.
Being they came into the world traumatically, and now they're being taken out of something that the only place they've ever known, the only people they've ever known. That's very traumatic, especially for a young child. They don't have any coping mechanisms. So we've prepared for that. We were prepared to be as patient and to follow her cues and to let her like just be prepared. Sometimes I know families who have gone and sat with their children for weeks just so the child would be comfortable. And you prepare yourself for that. You don't have a set timeline. You sit and you let the child like let their own journey unfold. You
Mm-hmm.
can't just force them. You can't rush in to hug them, even though you want to so badly. You want
Mm-hmm.
to kiss them and hug them and just tell them, like, I'm your mom. I've loved you for so long, but you have to let them feel secure first
Right.
because they're the priority, obviously, not your emotions. So that was hard. Not let my emotions rule the situation, allow her to do it.
Yeah.
So.
But if I'm not wrong, your husband did go through a rough time in terms of connecting with.
Oh, yes, I felt so bad for him. So he went through a lot. I mean, he went through everything I went through,
Mm-hmm.
just as a dad heart and, sitting and waiting and coping with me being so emotional. And, she has never really seen, a male,
Right.
especially his size. He's a
Mm-hmm.
big guy. He's like 6'4", 250 pounds. It's
Mm-hmm.
very intimidating to look at.
Yeah.
And the orphanages, all the caretakers were females. So for her to see this big person trying to hold her was very scary for her. And he was so patient. And I cannot say enough to his character, but um, he tried everything he could. He made sure he did all the fun stuff so that she would associate like the fun stuff with him, which kind of put me on the back burner, but that's okay. And but that's okay.
That's
Um,
fair, I guess.
yeah, right. But finally, she learned to trust him and learned like, man, this guy really does love me. I need to let him love me. But he did go through, especially while we were over in India. We were in India for about 2 weeks,
Mhm.
and I think maybe she let him hold her maybe once or twice.
Oh,
So
that's gonna
yeah,
be tough.
it
That's
was
gonna be
rough. It
really
was rough
tough.
for everybody.
This I was gonna ask you this later during the episode, but I think it's right time to ask now. How important is it for you guys, you and your husband, and like two partners to communicate during the whole process for adoption? Because, like you said, it was emotionally tough for you, but there's someone else with you, and he or she is going through the same thing. So, how important is it to communicate, especially during times when there's a problem with connecting? So,
Yeah.
how did you guys connect? How did you guys communicate and get through all of it together?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point because, we were both dealing with totally separate things. I
Right.
didn't have a break between my oldest and now Nana, who won't let me
Hmm.
put her down, and he didn't have any, attention, so he felt very left out,
Mhm.
so it was huge to communicate. We would normally communicate the most when we were at breakfast, because the girls were eating and they didn't need all of our attention at that point, so that was nice. And we were just like, okay, let's try this today, or hey, I need to let me while they're napping, is it okay if I go to the gym for some me time? And he's like, please go. Like, can I please take them to go to the playground? I'm like, yes, please, So communication is huge. Us as a couple, we've grown up together, so communication's been
Right.
key for
Mhm.
us, but this is a whole different level, especially adding another child to it. So yeah, just taking time to talk and being like, "Man, I'm really disappointed," or "I really need a break,"
Mhm.
So things like that, yeah.
But again, the fact that you've done it and doing it is
Yeah,
fantastic. But sticking to the point of communication, so I have a sibling, I have an older sibling, and I know for a fact that when I was born, a lot of attention was given to me, and my brother at some point did feel left out. Now, I've heard stories from families adopting, and there are certain circumstances when the biological daughter or son they do feel left out because there's a special attention given to the adopted child because they're adopted, they're new to the family, need to adjust. Was that a point of discussion, and how did you make sure that you guys are not doing that and you are giving attention to both of them, if not equally, at least to the point where she knows that you're still there, you're still home, you are still family?
yeah, that she's confirmed, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big point because at the time, Kyla, our oldest, was 4,
Mm-hmm.
so, that was a big she traveled with us, that was a big journey for her at 4 years old, but she has seen mama and Abba go through this adoption. She knew when I was sad about it, when she got her passport, she was ecstatic that she could travel now and get on the big airplane and go meet her sister. So we had her involved through the whole process. During that time, even before like we knew we were flying, we would just try to encourage her like, hey, like when we're over there, we have to let Nana be Nana, and sometimes it's going to take a lot of time from mama, or sometimes it's going to take a lot of time from Abba, but know that we need you there. We need you as a sister. She needs you as a sister. Having her feel like she has a job was big for us, that she has a responsibility in this too, because
Right.
she wouldn't know us as well, or she wouldn't trust us as well if Kyla wasn't there. So
Mm-hmm.
having her feel affirmed and needed was big. And then Shane and I both took times where I would take her to go get a treat from Starbucks because I
Mm-hmm.
needed coffee. It was just me and her, or Shane would take her with her to go to the pool, things like that, where we would still have our own separate time with her while we're over in India, and then coming back here into her own environment, into our own home. Kyla was the first to show Nana what her room to look like. And
Ah.
this is going to be your bed, Nana. My room's right there. Sissy's right down the
Right.
hall. Things
Ah.
like that. Oh,
Right.
she was so precious, so precious. So,
Mm-hmm.
but that was big for us. We wanted to make sure that she felt like she was a part of it. It wasn't just somebody being added and taking away from me. Like she was a part of the whole thing from start to finish. So,
I think that's very underrated. Even as a 4-year-old, to be a part of it and to feel part of the whole process,
oh
it's
yeah.
very important because it can.
Hmm.
By the time you're 16 and 17, it can affect you if you're not part of few things a
Yes.
family does.
Yeah. And they're so close together. We wanted to make sure they had a really good connection because they're only about 18 months apart age wise. But developmentally wise, obviously there's a pretty big gap. So once Nana catches up, we want to make sure that the bond is there because they're going to be going to middle school and high school together. So
Yes. Yeah, I
that
was
could be
gonna.
good or bad.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about it. How are they like siblings, though? I mean, in the end, they are siblings. So how are they
Oh
like?
yeah.
Who's the naughtier one? Who's
Oh,
the?
they're both naughty.
I
They're
don't know if
both
it's a
so
bad thing or a good.
sassy. Oh man, they're both so sassy. Nana, so
Do
she
you think? Do you
isn't
think she
speaking
gets
yet.
it
She
from a
does.
mom? Do you think she gets it from?
No, it's
Of
all
course.
from dad.
Of course. Right.
No, Nana, since she's not speaking yet, we're doing
Mm-hmm.
sign, and she'll do it with a big facial expression, like she's all done, or she'll roll her eyes. Oh man, and then Kyla just has the sassiest little comebacks. So they fight like sisters, They love like sisters. They snuggle in the mornings and in the evenings, and that's about the only time they get along when they're tired. Other times they're just fighting over toys or, things like normal sisters are at 3 and 4 and 5. So
That's so beautiful. I was scared about tearing up, and I don't usually cry, but I just might. No, but
don't do it.
there comes
And
a
I'll do it.
I was really worried, so when I was going through the stories and I realized you're emotional, and I got worried because I'm like, I can't cry on camera. I genuinely cannot cry on camera.
I'm not normally an emotional person. I'll be
Really?
honest. Like I am really not normally an emotional person, but um, just because of my job, I get on time for
Right.
it. But
Hmm.
these girls get me every time.
I
They
mean,
really
I
do.
mean, as a mother, it would. I'm assuming it would. There comes a stage in every adopted child's life when either they get to know the truth about I'm adopted, and they ask questions and they want to know about where their real parents are. Or maybe let's hypothetically assume that a situation like that arises. Have you guys spoken about that? Have you guys spoken about how she
We
might want to?
have. Obviously, she's going to know that she's adopted because
Mhm.
she looks different than us. So we're prepared to just grow her up with that knowledge, and let her know, like, you're adopted, but that doesn't mean anything different has changed.
Right.
You're just the same as your sister. With her asking questions, we really don't have a lot of information because it's a completely closed adoption. So we have no information of her biological parents. We don't even know what her birth um, weight was or what time she was born. We just know what hospital she was born
Right.
in.
Hmm.
So what little information they may have at the orphanage, she can access when she's 18, when she's a legal adult.
Hmm.
But um, we really have no information about it. The biggest thing that Shane and I are going to communicate is um, that your parents were brave to do what they did, and we love them for it, and we love them for giving you the opportunity to be our daughter. And there's no ever malice or anything like that because they did such a brave thing for having you and giving you up knowing that you will receive a better opportunity. So that's what we want to communicate to her, like, yeah, like she's going to go through her own emotions of feeling, like she's been abandoned or anything like that,
Hmm.
and she has to process those feelings, and we're just going to try to be there to help support her and know where we are and give her the resources to work through them, because I know when she gets older it's going to be a huge factor for her. So
I just want to say one thing, that you guys are just beautiful human beings, and it's
you're so kind.
no, I'm not kind. You guys are the kind ones. I'm just appreciating what you guys are doing, and it's like I have no words, and I'm just very lucky to be able to talk to you,
Thank
man.
you.
Updated a lot of what you were going through on Instagram, and you kept thanking the people for messaging you guys and for being supportive. How much do you think, to be honest, how much do you think updating your life and going through the whole process by talking to people on Instagram, by talking to your followers, and by talking to people who are kind to you, how much did that help you? How much do you think
Well,
that?
it's pretty crazy how much this story is blown up, and we're super thankful for it.
Yeah.
I did it on Instagram while we were going through it, because that was something that I needed to do to cope
Mm-hmm.
with. I
Right.
needed to release it, and I had a lot of people ask me a lot, like, "How's it going?" And a lot of the times, like when I was in person, it would be a really disappointing conversation. Well, nothing's changed, or
Right.
we're
Oh.
still adopting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, nothing's changed though. No, she's
Mm-hmm.
not home yet. So me being able to update on my Instagram was something that I felt like I was able to share what I'm
Mm-hmm.
going through, and then also um, still bring positivity to it. And I was able to connect with a lot of people on Instagram that were actually going through adoption at the same time we were. I have a dear friend that's actually in Italy, and she adopted 4 children from the same orphanage that Nana's from. And so,
Whoa.
I mean, the Instagram
Wow.
brought us together, and that's amazing.
Wow,
And
that is amazing.
I know, and she's
Whoa.
still such a dear friend to me. Like, we still communicate now that both all of
Mm-hmm.
our children are home and they go through the same things that I'm going through. So, but now that our story's blowing up, it is a beautiful response on how many people are reaching out and giving us love and attention, which we were never searching for, but
Mm-hmm.
it's so beautiful, the community that supports what we did. We didn't do it for other people, but like knowing that other people have the same hearts is very a beautiful thing, because you see it seems like a small community. It seems like adoption is a very small community that you go a part of, but knowing that the word's getting out and that the community could be growing is amazing, because
Yeah.
obviously there's still tons of children out there, and there's still all of them are worth it. So
Yeah, and I can say this for a fact that you guys deserve every s- drop of happiness that you guys are getting. And it's also funny because I went through one of your reels and I told my co-host this, and he's like, dude, I was going to tell you the same thing. So it's not even as if it's not even word to word. Like he already knew about this, and we were so excited for you to come on. Now,
oh, that's
this is a question I had because, like you said, no children, no kid is important. Then, like you could have adopted one from Texas, and it would have been the same. But why India? Why choose India?
Yeah. So we originally decided on doing international adoption
Mm-hmm.
after seeing Shane's brother come home from
Right.
Uganda. We have both traveled internationally, all over the world, which has been a great opportunity, and we've seen a lot of scary places in the world, or places where it would be scary to be an orphan in. You could
Right.
say that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, India's orphan rate is pretty high, and what we were looking at was their success after maybe aging out in an orphanage. Like, where
Mm-hmm.
did they go?
Right.
And sex trafficking, especially for females in India, is incredibly high. And to think of a child just being aged out because they have nowhere else to go, they either go to the streets or into that industry. That's something that was a high priority for us to make an impact for, even if it's just one life. So that was a main driving factor for choosing India. We didn't really have a preference if we had male or female child. Shane really wanted a boy, but of course, when we saw Nana, we were like, "No, this
Right.
is it."
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, that was the main reason why we chose India. And some orphanages over there aren't the best.
Right.
There are some
Yeah.
great ones.
Mm-hmm.
It's a beautiful thing that Nana was a part of the orphanage she was a part of, because they were so attentive. It was a
Mm-hmm.
smaller orphanage. She really was given the best opportunity that they could provide. And we're very, very thankful for that. But there are also other orphanages that aren't the same story. So,
Yeah. I have a question for you though. If you could go back 10 years before, if you were, let's say, 14 or 13 or 12 or 13, what's that
yeah, I'll
one
go with
thing? Yeah.
that.
What's that one thing about her? No, what's that one thing about you she won't like, that she will dislike? Like if you told her about everything about your life right now, what's that one thing about that third? What's one thing about you that the 13-year-old will dislike about you?
About what I was when I was 13 or now?
Now.
Now.
Yeah.
I guess the biggest thing is like what I had to face, and the coping mechanisms I had to find for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I went down a lot of bad paths in order to find a healthy one.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I could just tell myself, no, you need to do this and you'll
Right.
you'll feel better, you know.
Right.
But you have to go through a journey. Life is a
Yes.
journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you learn from it in order to keep growing, or you'll keep making the same mistakes until you learn from it. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, that was the case for me. But I've learned from
Yeah.
some bad coping
But I
mechanisms.
mean, like you said, you have to go through some bad things to go get the good
Yes.
ones, right? So I don't think, I mean, you're the one to say, but I don't think it's all that unfortunate because look at you now. You have adopted a
Yes.
child, you have a family of four, and that's,
Absolutely. No,
yeah.
absolutely. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question, if you would change something about.
I wouldn't change much. I mean, there's some things that I'm not excited to share, but
Mhm.
I'm excited to be where I am because of them. So,
That is beautiful. I know it's a month. By the way, she worked from home just for this. So again, thank you so much
and
for
of
that.
course.
This is my last question. This is how we finish our podcast. Now you were in India for, like you said, 2 weeks. So I'm
Yeah.
assuming you drank a lot of chai.
Oh, yes. And I
Yes.
miss Indian chai so
Really?
much.
So I was going to ask you, if you were to stay in India, would you drink chai? Would you drink tea or coffee? That's the basic question.
Oh, that's a hard one. I'm a hard coffee drinker, but I loved the spicy chai over there. I
Yes.
miss it. There's only one recipe that I have, and I've tried to make it being back over here in Texas, but it's just not the same. It really
But
isn't.
have you tried the Indian filter coffee?
No, I never tried coffee when I was over there because everybody
Really?
was like, "Yeah," everybody was like, "No, you have to drink chai," and I was like, "Okay, I'll drink chai."
I mean, yeah, I'm a whole chai supporter, but you should have drank the filter coffee.
Oh,
Being a
dang.
coffee lover yourself, maybe would you come back to India? Would you visit
We
this
want
country?
to, yeah. I would desperately go back to India in a heartbeat. I loved it over there. And we were planning on staying a little bit longer, but COVID and our visas
Right.
only allowed us to be there for a short amount of time. But definitely when Nana gets older, we want to take her back for maybe her 16th birthday so that she can like see where she came from and maybe go back to the state, where she was born, things like that. So that's what we're hoping for.
That is beautiful, and I hope you get to do that. I hope you get to drink the filter coffee. That's a disappointment. Guys should have drank that. Damn.
Yeah, and that's my one regret for not trying to.
Not drinking filter. I mean, fair. That's fair. But again, thank you so much for joining in. It's been,
Absolutely. It's
I
been
could
a
I could speak and ask you questions forever because I have that sort of mind. But just
pleasure.
taking so much of your time already. Just thank you so much for joining in, guys. We'll put her husband's all the links in the description below. So please check them out. You heard her. She's beautiful. She's an angel. So please go check them out. And yeah, like always, we'll have episodes rolling in every Sunday. Thank you so much for watching.
Yo, thanks for tuning into the latest episode of Just Batein. We hope you enjoyed it and that it left you inspired. Thanks for all your support, and maybe you could support us just a little more by maybe going to our Instagram and Twitter and giving us a follow there. And also, you can listen to us on all podcasting platforms, right from Spotify to Apple Podcasts to Google Podcasts. Cheers.